Hi, this is Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. I'm back again with a live broadcast, and today I'm going to do something a little different than I've done for a while. It'll be different for me, and hopefully it'll be something new to you. And you ought to try it though, because when I paint this, I'm going to show you all my steps I go through, and I'm going to paint a simple little scene, but I'll show you how I got there. Okay, so we're going to build up some texture and a little bit of decoupage, whatever that means. So let's go over to my studio table and let's get started. Okay, now here are the supplies that I'm using. Elmers Glue. Everybody should have a stack of that around somewhere in the house. A spray bottle or a source of water. This is my dot spray bottle. Paddle in the bottle with just plain water in it. An old brush. Don't use a good brush, but use an old brush when you're not using anymore. An old watercolor brush, cheap brush, but I'll be using to spread the glue around. And then also a palette knife would come in handy. Now, if you don't have a palette knife, you can use a stick and use your fingers to keep it nice and clean, or use something you can move the glue around with. Now this is a picture I took This is a picture I took in Williamsburg of a tree up close. But look at the texture. Look at the texture in that tree. And it would be hard to paint each one of those lines individually, but the impression of getting those lines, I'm going to show you how I do that. Okay, I'm going to start out with a piece of Gemini watercolor paper, 140 pound, archival. This is about a 10 by 9 sheet, 8 by 10 sheet, be close enough, or 9 by 12, doesn't matter. And I'll make a simple sketch on here. I'm going to do a tree. I'll use a tree bark, and I'm going to darken this up so you can see what I'm doing. And I got a limb out here on the side. And over here, I'm also this tree. I'm going to have another trunk over here. So this is going to be all about tree trunks. But that's what I want. Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of background. Maybe some trees here in the background, just to give a little hint that it's a landscape, a real simple landscape. Okay, that's my design. Now, I'm going to apply some glue to this. Now what I do, first of all, I wet the paper. I use a spray bottle, and I'm going to put some water down on the tree trunks. Putting water down on the tree trunks, because that's where I'm going to put the glue. So I put a nice little quantity of water. With a spray bottle, it's real easy. And then I'll take the Elmers Glue, and I'm going to start squeezing it out a little bit. Just kind of put some out. Put a nice little quantity, and put it in the areas you're going to put your art. This is art. I'm doing art with glue right now. So kind of spread it out a little bit. Yeah, close up the lid so it stays nice and fresh. Okay, now I take this old brush and dampen it with some water, and I'm going to use that to spread the glue around, because I want to cover. I'm covering up the space of the tree trunks, and with the water in the brush, it'll help thin out. It thins out and also spreads out that glue. So what you're doing is you're just spreading the glue out on that shape. Now I did this a while back on a painting, and I'll show it to you later, and it really came out very nice. So I was really happy with it. And I think this is a technique that you can use once in a while, and It's not just for trees. It can be for any rough surface. It could be for an old boards on a barn. It could be on rocks if you want to show some real interesting texture. So this is a good way to build up texture. Now, I'm going to put this, now don't let this get into your water or on your other brushes. So I'm going to use a paper towel here, just lay that down. Now, the next thing I need, and the other supply I have is some facial tissue, a box of tissue. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to tear this in strips. It works better if you put down smaller quantities, not the whole piece, but in smaller quantities. Then you lay it down anywhere. Just lay it down on the paper over top of the glue. And I tear it up in fine strips. It doesn't have to be straight, just irregular. And what I'm going to do is to cover up basically everything that's got glue on it, which is the trunk, the tree trunk. And I'm going to do this one over, get a little bigger piece over here. But I like to work in strips. I keep it. It's a lot easier to handle that way with the glue and everything. And now, as it's there, I'm also going to use the spray bottle again. I'm going to wet that tissue down. Get lots of water on there. Make it nice and wet. Okay. And then I can also add more glue on top of it. I'm going to put more. Add another layer of glue on top of that paper. And I still got some more tissues here. This is just one tissue. I didn't. And also, I spread that out with a damp brush. So it's a matter of layering. I'm layering tissue paper on top of the wet paper with glue. And what I'm doing is I'm really gluing this paper down on top of the surface. And over here for this little branch, put a little piece out here. And again, I wet that paper, keep it, because you want the glue to seep in through all the fibers of the paper. And then layer it again with another piece of paper. And then put some more glue on there. The glue will make everything stick together, that's for sure. And I'll use this brush. Spread that glue around. Also pressing the paper down onto the watercolor paper. Okay. Okay. Now I've also used paper towel. You can take an old paper towel, or just a piece of a paper towel. Any kind of absorbable paper works. Tissue is a good one because it's nice and light. But also a paper towel, you can put that on there. That gives a little more, I guess, a little more weight to. This is double thickness. And a little paper towel on there. Again, that gives a little a variety of towels. I'm always a proponent of variety. Whether it's color, values, shapes, and also you can use wrapping tissue paper. This is tissue paper that you wrap a gift up in. You can tear up pieces of that. Let's put some more glue on here. Just one more application of glue. Plenty of glue. I remember using this when I was in school. I'm sure you all do too. Elmers Glue, yes, that's a staple. In any classroom, you always had a bottle of glue somewhere. Everybody's played with that. But I'm playing it with here and making art out of it. This is an art project, and it can be a lot of fun. Yeah, a little bit of tissue paper. Okay. Okay, I think you got the idea there that you can use anything that's absorbable. Any paper towels, tissue paper, wrapping paper. As long as you can put water on it and it'll soak up the water. anything that's waterproof. Wax paper wouldn't work, of course. It might give you a different looking look. In fact, you could use almost anything. Now I'm going to take the here, let me put just a little more glue up here, just a little bit more. Make sure I have enough on there. This is just for demonstration here. Okay. And I use the old brush, damp, put a little bit of water on it. And I have a, make sure that's closed. Close my glue. I have a napkin here that I use to wipe off this old brush on. And right after I'm finished, though, what I do is I take this brush and I wash it out very carefully. I use soap and water, because this Elmer's glue is water soluble. You can add water to it. You can wash it off while it's still wet. But once it gets dry, it's going to be part of the background. Believe me, it just glues very well. Yeah, Elmer's glue is water soluble. You can add water to it and spread it out. Okay, so you get a nice layer. I'm going to rinse just a little bit of water on this brush, and I wipe it out real good. Now, again, I'll wash this brush after class. I'll wash this brush out with soap and water thoroughly. Okay, now what I do is I take the palette knife, or you could take an old knife. You could take anything that's got a little bit of stiffness to it. You could take an old spoon, an old stick, whatever. But what I'm going to do, I'm pressing the paper down, and I'm also moving it around. I'm molding some shapes into this. I'm making sure that it's pressed into the glue is really sticking to the background, which is the watercolor paper. And then I'm building little grooves, because this looks like the surface of that rugged old bark on a tree. So this is where you can become a sculptor. A sculptor does this. He will go along and sculpt out the clay. Anything that's moldable is easy to shape while it's still wet. And once it gets hard, then it's a little more difficult. And over here, same thing. I'm going to this is just a demonstration. This takes about, with a hair dryer, you could probably blow dry it faster. But what I did is let mine set overnight. So really, this you have to do the day before. And when you do it, do a couple of them, so that you have a chance to experiment. And if one doesn't work out so well, you have a backup piece that you can work on. And I don't think there's any failure in art, because you can always work something out. If it doesn't come out the way you want it, then work on it and add to it, and keep working at it. It'll come out eventually. Okay. Okay, I'm pressing down so that the paper is glued to the watercolor paper. And then I'm making little edges or little moves here. I'm pushing this around so I get the nice groove look of bark. Now, if I was doing boards or something, wooden boards on a house, I may do something a little differently. But I would follow the texture of the item or the subject that you're doing. If it was a rock, you might want to do a different shape. But basically, it might be all the same. Now let's see if I can bring this up. Wow, can you see the texture on that? I'm bringing it up to the camera so you can see real close. Look at that texture, okay? That's almost three-dimensional. You know, you got the length and the width, but now you got the height of your art. So really, it's almost like a three-dimensional piece of art, because you have the grooves and the sensation of looking at a rugged looking surface. Okay? Okay, now as I said, this is going to take a while to dry, because we soaked it with water and we put glue on it, and the glue has to dry and the water has to dry and the water paper itself has to dry. So you set that aside And I say I leave it overnight, come back to it the next day, and then do a couple of these small ones. This is a little 8 by 10 piece of paper. Make a couple of them this size, and do a different design, and have a couple to play with when on the next day you start painting. Okay. All right, I'm going to put this aside. So let me review what I did. I did a quick design. I sketched out some tree trunks here and the limbs. Then I went in. I wet the paper first with spray bottle. Wet the paper, nice and wet, all over. Then I applied the glue to get a nice base of glue on the paper. And I spread it out with an old brush. Water and glue mixed up and spread out. Then I tore up some tissue and put that down in strips. I use little pieces. Little pieces. They're easier to move around, little pieces. And then I put on some paper towel, a little piece of paper towel, and then I put on some tissue, wrapping tissue paper on top of that. So I got a variety of different papers on there. Then I sprayed it in between layers and added more glue in between each layer. And then I took the palette knife and went ahead and made grooves. This will stay wet like this for quite a while, for a couple hours, and you can still play with it. Let it dry a little bit and come back, and then you move it some more. So you still have a lot of flexibility here of making changes while this still dries, okay, while it's still wet. Okay, let me put this aside. Now I'm going to move my tools around here. Get this out of the way. Okay. Now this one here is a sheet now that's completely dry. Okay, completely dry. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some watercolor paint on top of this. All right. So that's my next step. And over here I have a test sheet over here, just a plain piece of paper that I can test out colors if I want to. But I'm going to start out with a lighter color, yellow, and maybe a little yellow ochre. And then I'm going to put a little bit of red, maybe mixed in with burnt sienna. Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm not using a pure color out of the palette. I'm mixing it with another color to give a little more natural color you might find in nature. That red mixed in with a little bit of burnt sienna. That's a change in color. This was yellow. This was lemon yellow mixed in with a little bit of yellow ochre. To give it another color. And then the last one I'm going to use a little bit of ultramarine, cobalt, a bit of cobalt blue, and I'm going to mix that in with a little bit of quinacridone violet. Just a little bit. So I got the yellow, red, and blue, the primary colors of the color wheel, but I mixed them in with other colors also. So using a pure color, I don't think it's a good idea in art. I think you need to vary a little bit. So what I'm going to do is pick up the yellow mix here, and I'm going to start putting in those colors. Now I'm going to ahead and use rough strokes. But I'll start over here with the light color. And you can see already the texture that's coming in, the texture of the paper and so forth. Now again, I'm going to go in layers here. I'm not going to put down the final color right off the bat. I'm going to go in with a lighter value and build up the colors as I go. Now I'm going to start adding a little bit of that green, a little bit of red. Excuse me, green. I just said green. I mean red. A little bit of that red mixed in with the burnt sienna, and overlap the colors a little bit. Again, this is just a light value that I'm putting in, just the first layer. Okay. Now from the red, I'm going to go, again, I'm not going to go directly to the blue. I'm going to go through that. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that red and start out with a little bit of almost a violet. So my transition of colors is a smooth transition from yellow, really orange and red, then from red into purple, and then finally to blue. So it's a gradual transition. I think that's easier than having it go from one color to the other drastically. I think the eye will follow a gradual shift of colors, a gradual shift, not a sudden abrupt color. Now there's artists that you paint that way, and that's okay. That will work. All kinds of artworks. It doesn't matter which way you want to go. So this is the first application. I'm just putting in I'm really blocking. Again, I'm blocking in, and that's usually what I do when I paint. I block in the colors I'm going to use, and I don't go dark all right away. I gradually build up. Okay. All right, that's already got an interesting look right there now. I'm going to let that dry just a little bit while I work on the background. And the background is going to be very simple. I'm going to mix up a little bit of green, and maybe I'll use a little bit of blue. And you know what I may do? I may take my spray bottle, and I'm going to put this is a dot spray bottle with green number 1. And I'm going to hold a mask. What I'm going to take this piece of an old plastic palette, and I want to mask off that area there, and then that way I don't get any of the green on top of this. I'm going to put in some trees out here with my spray bottle. See how easy that is? And then I'll take the water bottle with a dot sprayer with just water, and then I will hold it up a little higher, and then press the water down and let those drops kind of expand, and they'll look like leaves when they dry. Okay. All right. And I think over here, because it's such a small area, I'm just going to use a brush on this side over here. So I'll just use a brush on this side, pick up a little bit of blue, for variety. And what I'll do, pick up a little bit of that, lighten that up a little bit. Okay. And I think over here also I can do the same thing on this one. I got green here, and what I can do is take a dot spray bottle with cobalt blue, and add a little bit of blue down here at the bottom, a little cooler at the bottom and the top. Okay, let that dry. Okay, I'll go back and add some more paint to this top here. And I'm going to go a little bit darker here on the colors I have. Make sure my brush is clean. Now, the last color I had was blue in my brush, so I got to wash out the brush to take the blue out. Yeah, pick up a tissue and make sure it's clean. Yeah, it's good. Okay, now I'm getting a little bit darker now on the colors I'm going to put in here. But I'm going to leave some of that original. Color I put down. Number one, when you do a wash, it is a wash. It's on top of the tissue paper and so forth. That initial wash you put down is still there and you want to possibly use some of that, don't cover it all up. Utilize that color that you have there to give you a little bit of highlights or a little bit of value change, a little bit of color change, and make a little difference. Also, while I'm going to take the smaller brush, this is a medium round brush, take up a little bit of burnt sienna. I love burnt sienna. If you haven't seen my film on how to make burnt sienna, you ought to go check it out. I made a video on how to mix colors for burnt sienna, and it's a very popular video. But this is burnt sienna, of course, out of the tube, which is okay. But sometimes it's good to be able to mix a color and do it on your own sometimes. I'm putting a shadow underneath of this limb here, just to show there's a shadow possibly. Now remember, watercolor is going to dry a little bit lighter, so it may look dark now, but it'll get lighter as it dries. Okay. And I think also I got to get, okay, now go to the next color. It was a little bit of red. And I mixed that in a little bit of burnt sienna. Again, a little bit darker this time, a little bit darker, more pigment, more color. Because this is really the shadow side of this part of the tree. And I'm using kind of bright colors because you know, you wouldn't see this on possibly you can see this colors on some trees, but you wouldn't see all these colors on a tree. So I'm being a little artistic here. My artistic license of being able to, you know, paint any way I feel, and I like to put color down. So again, I'm leaving some of the original light colors showing as little highlights, and overlapping a little bit of that yellow so it becomes an orange. So I have a yellow, orange, red with burnt sienna. Again, a nice variety. Okay, while I'm down here, I'm thinking also here that there might be a little shadow here from this one side, because it's down the bottom here. So I'm going to add that in while I'm here. Okay, yeah. Kind of engineering this will go along. Wow, it looks bright here, but it's going to dry up. It's going to dry a little bit lighter when it dries down. Okay, then that's a wild tree, isn't it? Now I'm having fun. This is fun with watercolors and really decoupage. That's a French term, and it means mixing glue and water and adding it to paper. And it's pretty famous. I mean, there's all kinds of. I did a little bit of this a while back, but I haven't done it in a while. So I thought I'd give it another try. I think as far as having fun with watercolors and trying something new, this is an interesting technique to try, especially on an old tree or something like that. You can get a couple pictures or go out and take a picture like I did. I took a picture of that tree bark, and give yourself a little chance to emulate that a little bit. This would be hard to do with a brush and paints, so this is a lot easier to show that texture, especially the three-dimensional look where it comes bouncing off the paper. It comes looking at you right in the eye. Okay, I might for the sake of reflection here, I'm always thinking in art, when things are next to each other, they're going to have pieces, they're going to have colors mixing. Even in nature, the color's going to mix. So I see the red bouncing over to this part and red on top of that purple. Then it goes into purple, then into blue. So I see a little bit of that transition there. The purple was okay, the violet was okay, but I wanted to see that shift over to here and then into the blue. So I just add a little bit of red on that edge. So now I'll mix up blue with just a touch of quinacridone violet. Quinacridone violet used to be my favorite color, but also learned that you can go overboard with one color if you don't mix it with something else and have a nice transition. Quinacridone violet is a nice transition between blue and red. It's a great way to go from. I use it in my sunrise and sunset pictures. The violet is a beautiful color, and this quinacridone violet is outstanding watercolor. So this is the dark side over here. This is the dark shadow on this side, okay? And because it's the furthest away from light, and my interpretation is the light's coming from here, from right side over to the left side. So this is back side. So I'm going to put a little bit of brown in here, not too much. Maybe I'll use a smaller brush. Maybe I'll use a flat brush. Again, I'm showing that transition from one to the other. So this would be the darkest side. It's in shadow, and that might give a little more roundness to the shape. I'm always thinking and planning about how I can improve an area while I'm painting, and this is probably one thing I can do here. Okay. All right. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just use. I should have done this before. Take the. I'm going to finish off some of the background here now. Take some of that green, and the tree comes across here. There's a little bit of green showing in here. So I'll pop in a little green with a little bit of blue at the bottom. I give a continuation of that. And now while I'm over here, I'll just go ahead and add in some color along with this spray bottle. I'm gonna fill in the blanks a little bit. It's still drying, so I don't want to rush it up too much. So this will probably, when I finish this, probably still be a little bit wet over here, but that's okay. I can wait till next time I look at it, and then maybe work on it from there. These are trees, and I can put in the white spots. I can add little limbs and so forth when it dries. That's okay. I can wait for that too. And I think what I can do here. Let me take my sponge, make a little space. I'm going to make a little space for some more sky color. I think I'll use the one I did before. I just used the whole color. But I think I'm going to change today. I always try a little different thing. So let me take this, wash out the brush, make sure it's dry. I'll mix up a little bit of cerulean blue. That's a good sky color, or just enough to indicate sky. So I'm just going to have a blue. I'm going to have a blue sky today. No clouds. Don't worry about that. Just a little blue sky. Simple. I'm not going to get it too dark. I just want an impression, or just an indication of a little sky up there. So and next to this yellow, it'll show off a little bit, because yellow and blue are almost complementary, but they're opposite in the color wheel, so they'll show up a little bit. And then a little bit down here, just to finish off those. These are negative spaces. If you remember last video I did about negative space with those trees, wow, that was really cool. That painting those negative values and painting those tree trunks and filling in all that negative space. Yeah, that looks good. And up here again, just put a little bit of sky in there. And leave some white. It might be an indication of maybe a puffy cloud up there or something. You know, use your imagination. It's just paper and some paint. Okay, one little spot, and that's over here. Just Yeah, just put it in there. Overlap the tree a little bit, not gonna hurt anything. A little bit up here. Yeah. Yeah, that painting I did on Monday. Oh wait, I'm losing track of time. On Tuesday with Deep Woods. The Deep Woods painting. Wow. Look at those colors. Isn't that wild? But the best part is when you look at the texture, of that tree trunk, if you get it in the right direction, you can really see the three-dimensional. It pops right off the page. No. Okay. So I gotta let that dry. I may go back in sometime in the future and play some more with it. Maybe add in some text, a little more brush strokes here or there. But let me show you what this looks like under a mat. If you're going to make a painting out of this, wow! Look at that. Texture, texture, texture. With lots of color. Okay. Now let me show you. A painting I did a while back. A similar subject like this, but painted a little bit differently, and some different colors. I have to put this aside. I have to move this. It's still wet. Still, the paint's still moving around. We can take another look at that. And I can see better. I can see the texture on it probably a lot better than you can. I'm trying to give you an appreciation for how much texture is in that paper. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's a picture of a painting that I did a while ago, probably a long time ago. Probably, I don't know. I don't remember when I did it. But you can see here the texture is a little different. The colors are almost the same, not quite the same, a little different. But the texture, I really put in probably extra layers of paper. You can see some of the marks. You can see some of the marks on the. Maybe I can bring this under a close-up camera. You can see this much better, I think, close-up. So let me bring my close-up camera, and I think it's worth a look. You can really see the. Take off this light here. Might be able to see it even better. You can really see the grooves, and I even put some knots in there. Knots in the tree and so forth, and then extra paper movement and so forth, even over here. And also I had a nice little highlight over here. I put a different color on top. After it dried, I put in a little highlight over here, a little blue on top of that dark area, and gave it a nice highlight, which is reflected light, which is not. And this is a shadow, which I was talking about before, and a simple background. I mean, I use the same colors in the background. It doesn't matter, but the real effect here of the texture look. With the tissue paper glued to paper, let it dry, and then paint over it. And you can play around with the shape of it while it's still wet underneath. And you really get an interesting effect. It makes an interesting painting. And this is one simple example of what can be done. Okay. I'm going back to the main. Okay, then this is fun with watercolors, and that was a lot of fun. If you haven't played with paper and glue for a while, this is an opportunity for you to get your glue pot out, your Elmers Glue, which is probably the best one. If you don't have it, your kids probably have it if you have some children around the house. But Elmers Glue is a good one to use, good product. It mixes well with water, and you got some extra tissues or napkins. I've used napkins, tissues. I showed you a couple examples today of towels, and even wrapping paper, white tissue paper. and then you get that glued on. But then you have to wait a while. You know, let that thing dry out thoroughly. And after it's dry, then you can paint away. And then start out with light layers. Don't go in dark right away. Start out with a light layer of colors, then gradually build up. And I went with multicolored today. I went red, yellow, blue, and in between. You can stay with just one or two basic colors or mix them up. But you can have a fun time doing this. And then you let it dry, and then you go back and add some more to it later on, or leave it alone. So it makes a nice gift for someone and be a surprise. They wouldn't know how you'd have to explain how you painted that, because no one can imagine a watercolor making those kind of effects. But it is a fun way to paint. And I don't do it all the time. I do it maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. I don't do it that often. But if I have a place that's large enough and has an interesting shape to it, and I want to bring that texture out. It could be a bunch of rocks, it could be an old building, it could be a couple of big trees that are there. This is a place to put something like that down to make extra texture. And it gives it that third dimension that comes off the paper. So I hope you enjoyed today. I did. I had a lot of fun. So you all stay safe, and Saturday, I'm coming back on Saturday at 2 o'clock. I got some fun projects, and I got some downloadable sketches, and one of them is going to be a Happy Easter card, and that'd be for the kiddos or the younger folks to try, or even anybody can try it. It'd be a lot of fun. I did a nice design on that one. I think anybody would enjoy an Easter card, and I'll go through a quick example of what I did on Saturday, but I want you all to download it and have your own fun with painting your own. And then I got another project along with that. I'm going to do an Easter sunrise. And the Easter sunrise is going to be a brilliant sunrise painting. Again, I got a simple sketch on my downloadable link, which will be at the bottom in the comments of this particular video. And then you can download that link and make up a simple sketch and paint along with me. And that would be fun. Fun with Watercolors, I recommend that you join that group, and then share your art. Share
Facebook.
what you did.
Facebook.
Say again?
Facebook.
Oh, that's on Facebook.com/Fun with Watercolors. That's the group name, okay? And my Facebook page is Facebook/Everetts Watercolors. Okay, so look, let's see you Saturday, and let's have some fun. I'm trying to come in for Easter and celebrate a little bit of Easter time together with you all, and have a little fun project and paint along with me on Saturday. So hopefully I'll see you Saturday at 2 o'clock. Okay? All right, you all stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.